Peace, peace, peace. I'm the God Mallah-Divine Mallah from Allah's Insight, the author of the Hidden Hand Duality Soap, as well as Prison Survival. Here, I got one of my good friends, as well as my air-like. He goes by Starmel, and I'm going to let him introduce himself because he'll do more justice than I could do. Go ahead, brother.
All right, peace, family, peace to all who are watching. My name is Starmel Allah. I am the author of the Righteous Way trilogy, which is a series, a three-part series, nonfiction books that discuss my upbringing in the nation of God's nerves, 5% nation, growing up in New York City. And this is my way of giving back to spread the teachings to those who are not 5%ers.
True indeed. So when did you become aware of these teachings, and when did you decide to take the journey into the 5% culture?
So this is around 1994, but officially it became, because a lot of the music was out. But, I had people in my neighborhood, by this time I was living in Queens. I'm originally from East New York. But by this time, when I moved to Queens in the early 90s, I came across a brother by the name of Ron Allah, who eventually became, educated. And he was the type of brother where he had knowledge of self for quite a while. And, this was actually in a park. And this was 1995, in the summer of 1995, where this brother, was responsible largely for answering a lot of my questions regarding religion and history and all of that. And he ultimately is the one who gave me the proper foundation of supreme mathematics. And, I started to learn about the history of Allah and how the movement was flowing at that time. So 1995 was how I, officially came into contact. I mean, years prior, I had experiences where I would hear music from gods, but didn't make the connection that these are people who had knowledge of self, and they were putting knowledge in their lyrics. As a young person listening to, like growing up, world famous Supreme Team, Rakim, Kane, this is the mid '80s, and so this is also the height of the golden era, in which the 5%ers was very integral to bringing hip hop to that stature. So, growing up on that music, ultimately, I was sort of like where you have bits and pieces of knowledge, but you haven't made the connection between the knowledge and what's going on in the world around you, and
True
so
indeed.
for me, it started to come together in 95.
How old was you in 95?
15.
Okay, so that's a different impact. So now that you are a mature man,
Right.
what do you see different about the culture as far as it pertains to yourself?
As far as, okay, well, so, yeah, I mean, as a teenager, so just to kind of give you like a little comparison, I think that's the best way I might be able to sort of answer this question. Comparing my 15-year-old self to my 40-year-old self now, right? Definitely, there's a large degree of understanding and maturity, right? I think those two things are very important, because when I was 15, I didn't know the importance of the teachings and what it meant for the world around me and the world that I was living in, what it meant for my orientation and how I view the world and how I view self, right? And so it really wasn't until, like my incarceration, where I started to have the time to reflect on myself and my life, and use supreme mathematics, for example, as a framework for a deeper understanding of myself. And so that became the impetus, so to speak. After dealing in the streets for so long, you eventually, as they say, phase it out, or you grow out of it. You become a more mature man. And in that growing maturity, you start to develop insights into yourself, where you start to understand yourself a little better, and you understand the framework that you're using to move about life. And so for me, supreme mathematics became the foundation of it all. And it wasn't until I started to take supreme mathematics seriously as an adult that I began to see the insight and the responsibility that came with having knowledge of self. And I think that's a major thing now, because as a man today, at my age, right, once you become a man, meaning you come into the understanding of what your responsibility is, and not so much the nuts in between our legs, but so much the responsibility that comes with the knowledge that we have as you know, as men, you know, a duty,
True
right?
indeed.
You have a duty and a responsibility to apply these teachings in a responsible manner as it is applied to our families and our communities,
True
right?
indeed.
And
So,
so, that's
um,
how I
so let me
see that.
ask you this, because
Yeah,
you was formerly incarcerated.
yeah.
How long have you been out?
I've been out since 2010.
Wow, now. So, um, are you familiar with the concept or the movement that's called credible messenger?
Not familiar with it. In fact, again, I kind of blame the LSAT studies for that.
Okay.
Not being in tune with a lot of the things that's happening, because when studying for the LSAT, for example, put me in a space where I shut out so much, to sort of have a tunnel vision and a laser focus when it came to preparing for the LSAT. So because of that, I've been out of touch with a lot of
Okay.
things, man. So you would have to
I'll
definitely,
share with you.
yeah,
You are a credible messenger, but credible messenger is a terminology started by one of my mentors, Dr. Divine Pryor. He used to be with the Center for New Leadership. He formerly retired from there. And but basically it's a concept of people that went through incarceration, had transformation in their life, whatever that transformation looked like. When they came back out to society, they
mm-hmm.
became community stakeholders and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so you're a credible messenger regardless if you knew or not that the movement existed.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that from a formal standpoint, the probation office has adopted the credible messenger model. A lot of these other programs like SOS and stuff is based off of the um the actual ones that's doing the groundwork being credible messengers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I say that because I know one time you and the cadre of brothers was going to different neighborhoods, projects, you know, which we should
Mm-hmm.
make a big distinction. Y'all was
Right, right,
going to
right.
projects and y'all was teaching, y'all had these pamphlets that y'all would put, a program that y'all had that I thought was real, I thought it was a real good program where y'all was teaching young brothers how to interact with the cops, as well
Yeah,
as teaching them, introducing them to some of the science of the 5% movement. What
right.
sparked that? And I say that because we just see the incident that just took place in Minnesota where they killed the brother. The
Mm-hmm.
police killed the brother. So what was going on during that time? Like what year did y'all do that? And what was going on that y'all said, yo, we're gonna take it upon ourselves to enlighten these young brothers and sisters on how they should interact with the police?
Yeah, that was around, I would have, a few years ago, actually. Well, several years ago, 2016, 2017, around that time where the young brother was also killed. You know, a lot, this was happening back to back. This is actually before, this is after Trayvon Martin, you know, Sandra Bland, um, and what's the other brother name who was unarmed and shot in the back. You know, another brother was shot in his vehicle
That
alongside
was
his woman.
Castile, Philip
Right.
Castile.
Bill Castile, right. So, I mean, this thing has been a pattern of unarmed Black Americans, if you want to call them African Americans, you know, but a systematic pattern where you had these shootings. And we became, when I say we, I'm speaking of namely Universal Allah. It actually started with the God Universal. And myself, we all agreed, including Divine. Some people may know him as Dijwar on Facebook or Instagram, but Divine out of Now Justice, you know, he lives in Now Justice now. So yeah, God, we started off and we had this idea, man, to start. We need to really take the initiative to start spreading information and start teaching our community how to deal with police encounters. Not only how to know your rights, but also have an understanding of community and police relationships, and being able to understand, like, listen, sometimes an officer may come up to you and you feel like that officer should not be doing that. They should not be harassing you. But the reality may be that the officer's just doing their job. It could be a number of factors going on. It could be a crime that might have been reported or whatever. And maybe the officers might think, unfortunately, that, you may have something to do with it, or that they're just crossing every T and dotting every I. And so they start questioning people in the community. Sometimes they are professional about it. Sometimes they are not. And sometimes, unfortunately, those situations escalate and turn into, confrontations, if you will. So we wanted to do something that, was very simple to do, out of care and concern for people in the community. And so we had gotten some pamphlets drawn up where on one side of the pamphlet, there were a little brief history of Allah and his teachings and the work that Allah and Justice and the early 5%ers were doing in the community. And then, in fact, this kind of sort of it connects to even the Harlem Six, right? That's another situation where there was a police encounter involving young Black men in Harlem, right? And then it became national headline, and so we see in the media where this idea that somehow, young Blacks are dangerous and they're a threat. And so this made it even more necessary to come out with something, a publication that we can hand out to the community to educate them, especially young Black brothers. We wanted to educate them and say, listen, not only should you know your rights, but here's some other things that you should know when you're confronted by an officer, and they could just be doing their job. It may not even be a harassment situation. So we wanted to one of the first places that we went to was we went into Medina. We went into Marcy houses, public housing. And so we started there, and, it really was just us taking the initiative. We had no microphones, no bullhorns, no platform. We just started to engage with people that we saw in the street simply by greeting them, saying hello, stopping them. Can I take a moment of your time to speak to you about this matter? And this is who we are, and this is what we're doing here, and we would give out these pamphlets, and we would see men, we would see women who are part of that community. We would walk up to young people that we saw just hanging out, playing around in the housing complex, so that's what that was about. That was about, showing other people as well, other 5%ers, that they can do the same thing. That is not just us. We're just stepping up and setting the example. Like, look, you can engage your community. You don't need a platform. You don't need approval or permission from anyone to step up and engage your community.
So do you think as current 5%ers that we are engaging our community the way that we should be engaging? Because it's a lot of social issues that go on. And I participated in a few things myself, and sometimes it's like I'm the only 5%er there, and it's a degree. Like, one of my favorite degrees is the 18th degree in the 1 through 40. It says, "What is the duty of a civilized person?" Then it goes on and say the duty of a civilized person is to teach the uncivilized civilization, righteousness, and knowledge of himself, and the science of everything in life, which is love, peace, and happiness. So I'm saying is, when y'all look at the word duty, it's an obligation. And we say, plus we men, and men should, I don't want to say control. I think that's the right word. We should be able to address issues, develop issues, and even, define what these issues look like and how to address them and how to defend them. And that's 5%ers, because we say we have a certain level of understanding about social reality based off of the historical context of us dealing over here in America. That do you think that that we have been engaging over the last years or decades as a whole community, not individual pockets, but as a whole community?
Right. Well, again, I think for an array of reasons, many reasons, uh, we could be doing more. We can definitely do more than what I've seen. Now, I've seen a lot of individuals, I've seen small groups of 5%ers engaged in the community, uh, participating in community events, or even creating, uh, you know, uh, community events. I've seen, and I've been a part of that myself, where we have, taken the time out to put up our own goal and organize ourselves and do things, but it was never like the whole nation. It was never like everybody coming together to do this, right? So it has always been like these small groups of 5%ers, for example, participating, engaging in community events, or small groups starting events themselves and included the community, right? Uh, but we can do much better. We can do more. Of course, post COVID-19, right? Post coronavirus, something would have to be drawn up for safety, considering people's health and safety first, when it comes to gathering post COVID-19. So that's something that I think still has to be worked out. But we need good leadership to step in to be, visionaries, and have the
Yeah.
organizational skills and professionalism to coordinate different people from different boroughs, or different cities or states, to have them participate and engage the community on different levels. There's a lot that can be done in terms of having the qualified representatives, who are qualified in, like, for example, media and journalism, to help get the word out. Because some people might start an event, but it has, whoever's supposed to be handling communication to let people know what's happening might not be that effective, right? And so what there's plenty of room for people to step up and serve in those roles by themselves. Like, we don't need, I don't think it's effective to have one person do everything, right?
True
And so
indeed.
some of that burden can be leveraged if one person who is qualified in media relations and communications, getting the word out to different 5%ers, letting them know what's happening, right? And then there's somebody else that may be qualified to be dealing with the organizational logistics of, organizing people, right? Another person can be dealing with how much money is needed, right, to make sure that there are refreshments, for example, to make sure that the team has what they need to carry this thing out successfully, and look good in the process, and not only being right, but just being right and exact,
True
and
indeed.
which is being effective, right? Being effective. And so that's what we want to do in 2020 moving forward. We want to be effective, learn from the mistakes of the past. That's a big one. We don't want to repeat history. We want to renew history. We want to make it new by the history that we write today, every mile that we walk,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, I think that events that have happened in the past, or uh, different types of opportunities came and went, but now we should definitely focus on what opportunities present themselves now. What issues are important to our community now that we can get in front of, be a part of, and also have our voices be heard, right? Because for every issue that happens in the Black and Latino community, 5%ers should be there letting our voice be heard and getting the word out. And there's plenty of room for more than one person to do it. It doesn't have to be one person. Okay, we just have to make sure that we are qualified,
True indeed.
right? We have to make sure that we have the requisite skills to carry out our duties right and exact, you know.
True indeed. Yeah, infrastructure is definitely, but at times though, it seems like amongst sections of 5%ers that they don't like infrastructure building. It's like, it's almost like you have different currents in the culture of the 5%er, which you do, because I see it like, like you can see a dot on the wall. So, but in these different currents, you have one current that feels like, oh, we need to be in the streets, not realizing the streets in 2020 is not the same streets in 1970, 60, or even the early 90s, because
Yeah.
people are not hanging out outside as they once were. So it's like, as we progress with, you know, the new tools we have at our issues, new technologies, and even from a development standpoint, you know, and you have like I want to say like almost like a street mentality amongst certain brothers, like a gang mentality amongst certain brothers, and they like an opposition, and those that's like got these visionary ideas or progressive ideas, they be drowned out to these brothers that got this other type of mentality. You know, so it's like, so moving forward, how do we reconcile those two different types of mentality?
Yeah, that's a you know, hit something that I learned in my research, just of this particular culture. And what I realized, like even in my own borough of the desert, you always had different types, for example, of gods, right? You had your gods who were intellectual, cultural, right? They were more about the teachings and the implications of the teachings as it relates to everyday life, right? So they were like very cultural. Some of them became vegan. They were all about the, you know, the intellectual implications of the teachings, right? But then you had your street gods, right? You had street gods, and some of these gods, they knew their lessons too, but we already know, like some of them, you know, they were like into other sciences that didn't really deal with teachings, but was trying to, you know, come up out of the hood and change their financial situation. So some of them went, you know, on dealing with the hustling aspect and, you know, different things like that. So we know the science, right? There's a flip side to the coin. But then in the middle, you also had brothers who were like the bridge between the street gods and those who were more of, you know, applying the teachings on an intellectual and a cultural level, right? And so those brothers were able to mix in between both groups. And so we have to be able to embrace our diversity. You know, different types of gods. You got some people, man, they'll come from a more militant perspective. Some people will come from a more intellectual perspective. Some people will come from a more real down to earth street. This is how they got it. And so without trying to dismiss anybody's personal history and how they came into the teachings, and we got to remember that, you know, it was the firstborns got it from the streets, you know. So we have to sort of like embrace the different aspects, right, of culture, and realize, man, that there's more than one way to build. We just have to build. We can't get to a point where we get stuck and stagnated. And so in terms of reconciling, I think that the more we embrace each other, man, and support, and just like sort of have understanding, be open-minded about how different people got the knowledge, that will create sort of the environment where it's a little more welcoming and people will be a little more at ease because they have the understanding that people got the knowledge different ways, and people have different approaches to how they build and how they teach. Just like Allah did not teach all the first nine-born the same way, and he met them each in different circumstances. He didn't give them all the same thing. And this is confirmed by the true history of Allah and his 5%, written by those who were there, which is a phenomenal book. And I advise anyone that want to learn the history of this culture, of these teachings of law and justice and the firstborns, get that book, right? True History of Allah and his 5%, written by those who were there. Get that book, because that confirms what I'm saying. Like, we have to be able to embrace how all of us came into the knowledge very differently. Some of us got it differently by different people. So we can't all reasonably expect to be the same in our approach and how we deal with this. But we should learn to embrace each other's different qualities, that we all come together and that we are lost. So, you know.
And that's the first degree: know, look, listen, observe, and respect. I think a lot of times people get, what do I like or dislike? It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's respect, and
Right.
that's peace. So we lost a lot of gods and earths this year. A lot of gods and earths. I don't know what was to COVID-19 or health, but the last year and a half, you know, do you think that we need to have a more concentrated effort and maybe like, yo, promoting a health initiative amongst ourselves, like holding
Yeah.
ourselves accountable? Like, yo, you know, me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I know sometimes things happen, you know, people working, they got families, they doing, so they can't readily go to the gym an hour every day.
Yeah.
But like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was thinking, because I started designing workouts for myself that's like 10, 15 minutes. Because I think
Right.
everybody got 10, 15 minutes. And then even like, you know, looking at the quality of foods we eat, because I don't really like, you know, I don't care about the vegan or if you eat meat thing. You know, I'm gonna eat vegan sometime and I'm gonna eat fish all the time. But
Right.
so it's like, do we think that we need to like really promote that? Because it's like, yo, so when I look, like it was, to me, it was almost sad every time I go on social media or I get a text before certain things hit social media, yo, this person passed away, that person passed away. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, damn, we done lost another archive, because we don't
Mm-hmm.
like, we just starting to really archive some of the elder sisters and brothers. So like, how do you see like a like, you know, a health initiative push amongst our culture?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's part of our teachings, God. That's right in the 1 to 36. Our people being taught to eat the wrong foods, right? And so when you reverse the polarity of that, we know that we must teach our people and we must practice eating the right foods as much as we can until it becomes second nature, right? Because that's survival. And so we know that eating the wrong foods not only make us other than ourselves, but they shorten our lifespan, right? So teaching this has been a part of our teachings from day one. And I think that a lot of 5 percenters have taught over the years, or have started initiatives where their main focus is to share information with people that pertains to eating the right foods and eating healthy, right? We started that by teaching newborns that, yo, the first thing you got to cut out your diet is pork, right? And then that, other discussions will come about dealing with red meat, processed foods, smoking, drinking, et cetera, et cetera. So this is part of the teachings. And I got to give a shout out, man, to people like in my generation growing up, people like Sayana, Supreme Understanding, A-Life, Sunez. These are people who know about eating the right foods. Oh, DJ Wise, Akeem Rashad, right? Like these are brothers and sisters that I know, and they have been teaching this thing for quite a long time and been practicing this, and even put out publications like Hood Health, to try to teach whether people are 5 percenters or not 5 percenters, teaching them how to eat the right foods. And so
Yeah,
this
that
is,
brother
very
books
serious.
is
Back to God. Yeah.
let me give a
Yeah.
shout out to Supreme Understanding, because his books, when I
Yeah.
was in the Trivia Cipher, I had my cadre get a lot of his books. And
Mm-hmm.
I think his writing style, I think his editing style, I think it's like in the quality of his books is like spot on. And you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I always support that brother.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely. And this is what I mean. Like more has to. I think they should continue as I would continue to whenever I can to try to either refer people to the books or just continue to get the word out. We have to sort of cross market ourselves too. We got to get to a point where we start marketing each other's products,
mhm.
books, publications, and other things. The God Kazir, matter of fact, he started he does catering. He has a catering company and he makes his own righteous seasoning, God,
Who is that?
where he does it, Kazir Law. He's out of Power Hill, out of
Okay.
Philly, and the God started 7K1 Cuisines. That's the name of it. You could check him out on Instagram at 7K1 Cuisines. And that's the God knowledge. Pardon,
Okay.
so God Kazir Law.
I,
Uh,
I I'm familiar.
he's a chef. Yeah, the God is a chef. He does his thing. And he started up this company, and I thought it was a supreme idea to start making seasoning that do not have certain ingredients that other mainstream seasonings like Sazon has, such as MSG, monosodium glutamate, which, you know, if you continue to eat that, man, it'll just damage your whole inside, you know, and you know, as we have to also, you know, and you know, not, this is definitely a subject that requires a lot more time to discuss. There's so much to go into it. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. But you know, you got people who have always put out, like, for example, publications that gave people some instructions on how to eat right, you know, and sort of like added on in a how to eat to live fashion, right? Which was put out by Elijah Muhammad, and one of the earliest books that 5% has studied was How to Eat to Live. And so we have to start getting into creating more publications and writing our posts, whether they be on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and getting the word out and just trying to get people the right information that's proven to be correct, fact found, and you can show and prove by making small changes to our lifestyle, our diet in particular, that, you know, we can prolong and extend life. And so, yeah, that's all part of our teachings, and we need to get that word out.
So I want to touch on something, because you're an author, and I want to touch on, because I'm an author, you know, but I wrote a memoir, but my first book is a fiction. It's an urban political street thriller, and I put the medicine in it. Like, you know, you got to be crafty now. But what made you be an author, in what genre do you write in?
Well, so I've always, since I was very young in grade school, I've always had a natural gift for language arts. I'm like an honor student in that regard. Like, I've always had high grades, high remarks, the highest in my class when it came to writing. And I've even had, you know, professors acknowledge that during graduation. My grades reflected that this is a strong suit of mine, if you will, when it comes to using words in a language arts form to write. So, you know, for me, I wanted to write something that was nonfiction. I think that's because I dabble in poetry and a little bit of fiction as well. And I think creative writing is a tremendous creative skill that requires deep focus and concentration to really get your message across by weaving it into a fictional story. And I've always been nice with, you know, creative fiction. And so, but for the righteous way in particular, and I kind of like look at the righteous way as a you know, unique as a genre in and of itself, so to speak. So, because although I can write poetry and other forms of writing, I chose to write nonfiction and chose to put the focus on myself, because going back to that degree again, what is the duty of a civilized person, right? And so when speaking about that duty and speaking about teaching people, right? You know, civilization, the meaning of civilization, for example. I'd rather do it by showing what I learned and what I know, right? So it becomes a personal sort of like biographical when you're teaching people the knowledge of yourself, right? Because other people can learn the knowledge of themselves when you share the knowledge of yourself, right? So by me sharing the knowledge of myself, and basically that includes not only what I know from research and experience, but what I know from building with other gods and earths, right? And walking and talking, living mathematics, living this culture out for the last 25 years, right? And so I wanted to put that in sort of a story form in which the story is real. It's about me. And this is what I learned. This is what I researched. These are the conclusions that I've come to. And here's how I came to those conclusions. And here's how you can apply it to yourself. So that sort of told me immediately that my writing had to be nonfiction, right? It had to be nonfiction, and I wanted it to be about me. I wanted it to be about history, right? In terms of what I know. And in those areas where I'm talking about topics where, like, for example, I wasn't there for those topics, and I relate to them, and I'll say things like according to. So it became a nonfiction, and I thought that nonfiction form was the best form for me to write, because I figured like this: look, if I'm going to write about my culture is not fiction, right? So I had to write something that was nonfiction, because my culture is nonfiction, right? My way of life. Some people may call it belief system, ideology, right? My outlook on life, my framework was nonfiction. And so I wanted to give that to those people who want, for example, something that serves like a self-help book, right? And from a 5% perspective. And so that's why I wanted it to be nonfiction in a self-help format, where people can start at any chapter they want to, and you know, that may grab their interest or relate to whatever it is that they're dealing with at the time, especially if they're interested in learning more about the culture, right? Because it is the righteous way, and it was inspired by our national anthem, the Enlightener, the chorus that says, each and every day and each and every way, I'm going to show, improve, and teach the righteous way. So that became the influence from which I decided to name the book The Righteous Way, and talk about. And so this is basically what I absorbed. This is what I internalized, and nonfiction was the best way to get that message across, you know?
Let me pause for a minute, because I want people to acknowledge certain things. Because a lot of the guards that's in the interior cipher that was getting labeled as gangs and fighting cases throughout the United States, you were one of the earlier guards in New York system that fought a case beyond the culture and won. Like what was your drive to say, you know what, I need to, like, I need to be more proactive. I'm tired of what's going on. So what did you see that allowed you to say, yo, I'm gonna take on this mission?
Well, number one, it directly affected me because I was incarcerated, and you know, I have to give credit to powerful ruler nation Allah, who was a God who dedicated his life damn near to the study of law and litigation. And while when you're incarcerated and you are in a confined environment, a controlled environment, you know, and you don't dictate the rules, oftentimes as God, you know, while we were serving our sentences, we were confronted with certain policies that infringed upon our ability to practice our culture as other people from other said nations and religions were allowed to practice their culture. And so we saw that as a fundamental wrong. That also, according to the Constitution, was wrong. And so we were able to, at the time, we were all like guys who worked in the law libraries. We received law library training, legal research training. We've been certified and took state exams for legal research, and we became employed by the Department of Corrections to work in their law libraries to assist other prisoners with any and all legal issues that they might have. And so when we began to examine the cases, there were many guards who filed cases before myself and before brothers like Intelligent Tariq, you know, and these cases were trying to address the systematic, arbitrary and capricious decision-making of prison administrators to label us a security threat group. And but we didn't have access to the resources to litigate these cases. So the first one was Intelligent Tariq Allah, who was represented by attorneys from Sullivan and Cromwell. And they had the backing, they had the resources to be able to litigate his case for 5 days, in which, after which we won First Amendment protection officially recognized on paper, which we haven't had before. And brothers had to struggle and fight and litigate to earn that, even though technically we don't need to go to court, obviously, but we were in a situation where we had no choice to go to court because we were confronted with a system that told us that they would not allow us to have lessons. They would not allow us to have, to wear our universal flag, or even come together in groups to have classes and to deal with rallies and parliaments. And whenever you tell someone that they can't do those things, and there's no legitimate reason or penological interest to justify that restriction, it becomes a strong legal issue. And so we went up in the courts, God, and we had to show and prove our culture was right and exact. We know two things we had to show and prove. And anyone can learn this if they just take the time out to get the summary or the transcript from the Intelligent Tariq case. It's Maria versus Broadus is the citation for that case, and the decision came out in 2003. And they'll see that the first two things we had to show and prove. We had to show and prove our sincerity, that we were just and true, that we were, serious about our culture. So we had to show and prove that in federal court, and then we had to show and prove that that we're not a security threat group, that we're not trying to. Our aim is not to take over jails or anything like any nonsense like that. We were trying to use our teachings as a basis to reform ourselves while we do our time. That's what was going on. And those who ran the prisons who didn't have that understanding came about with these restrictive protocols that we ultimately challenged. And so when Intelligent Tariq won his lawsuit in 2003, they acknowledged us. What the effect of that was that they acknowledged us on paper, but in practice, we were still experiencing the same restrictive protocols, right? The same, the reality was the same. It just changed on paper. And so in 2008, I caught that. And I began to get counsel from Powerful Ruler Nation of Law. We were in the same cipher, penal cipher at the time. And, he, was telling me what Intelligent Tariq did. What arguments did he use? What language did he use to litigate? And so we had to discover what was effective and what was not effective, right? Because some brothers were losing their cases because they brought it the wrong way. They had the wrong approach. They had the right idea, but they had the wrong approach, right? And so it took trial and error for us to learn what the proper language was to use so that we might approach the situation in a way that we will become victorious. And so I followed the same blueprint, God, and challenged those restrictive protocols. And then I ultimately was transferred to another facility while the litigation was pending in federal court. And they transferred me to Riverview, where I met Universal. And when I met Universal, he agreed after I showed him what was going on, to join. And that's really what it was. It was an effort not only to teach in court who we are, but we had to let brothers know what we were going through and how we were going to challenge and how we could become successful. And so the God added on to the case, as well as the God Magnificent. There was another God that was with us named Magnificent, and he joined the case. And we kept it alive, and we kept going. 5 years later, from 2008 to 2013. In 2013, the federal court appointed us an attorney to negotiate a settlement. And so we ultimately agreed on a proper settlement that was mutually agreeable to what brothers inside needed to practice their culture. And it ultimately became New York state-wide. It was a statewide shift and change in their protocols to allow brothers to have classes, have parliaments, have rallies, be able to celebrate honor days, be able to have even someone from the outside come in as a representative to facilitate some classes. So we were able now to achieve that, guy. And more is still going on, because we did the same thing in Virginia in the God's case.
Pause. I was in Virginia. So let me show you how crafty, diabolically that prison officials are. See, I entered the prison system in 1995.
Right.
So around 96, I think it was a brother. He started litigating based off, they called us as a security threat group. Mm-hmm. But they didn't restrict us. They, as far as like, we could wear our crowns, mm-hmm. we can have ciphers on the yard, we can get 5% literature. They wasn't taking our degrees and stuff like that. But when the explosion of the East Coast Bloods, it didn't hit Virginia to 2000 or 2001. But when it hit Virginia, it was so many brothers that used to be 5%ers that turned blood. The Virginia people, the administration thought that they was us. So when they changed the language, they got rid of SDG, period, policies, and it was only gang policies. And if you didn't fall under any type of other what they call recognized group, then you was a gang. And what led Creed into it was you had brothers with supreme names was Bloods. And a lot of time people miss that nexus that if the administration really don't know nothing about us as a people, period, inside or outside. So now we inside and they see the same person. If your name Divine and his name Divine, but y'all saying y'all not the same, they not trying to understand that, especially if this fella got a universal flag tattooed on his arm. So that's what happened, and that's what made the fight a little harder because I was litigating. Matter of fact, I actually made parole while I was litigating, and they was like, "Yo, your case is moot because it was only my name on the case. You're not in here no more. You're not going under these constitutional violations." So I said, "Your devils is crazy," but okay. So I came home to New York. Brothers still was litigating. And then y'all was able to get involved because once again, a lawyer was appointed. And brings me to my question because we know y'all won the case. Now, do we need more trained 5% lawyers and why?
Oh yeah. Oh, well, definitely. That's why I'm pursuing law school right now because of the need to qualify myself, and not only that, but pursue a profession that I'm passionate about. I like the legal area. The legal arena is my field. I've had quite a bit of internships already and professional experience working in the legal field, and that's been my experience coming out of P-Now Cipher, where I have already won 2 lawsuits. One of which is over the peace sign that a lot of people don't know about. And I'll deal with that science. I might have to write something up to sort of like, tell that story over the peace sign. But I was victorious in that one as well. So we definitely need people who take the time out to understand the language of the law, to understand the Constitution, which was supposedly put together by the framers of this country, who most of whom, or a good third of whom, were Freemasons. We have to understand the language because as with all things, that's how you're successful in knowing what you're talking about when you're talking to different people in different worlds. And if we're going to be a lord of all the worlds, then we have to know the language of all the worlds. We have to know how the systems of these worlds work. And when it comes to the system of jurisprudence or the criminal justice system, for example, we have to know how that works. And we have to know the language. We have to be able to know what we're talking about. Okay, that's knowledge, right? And what wisdom is the application of that. Mean we can't go into the courtroom and not be wise in what we're saying. So we want them to get the understanding, the correct and proper understanding of who we are, what we represent. So with that being said, we definitely need people to at least take some time out. Now, people don't necessarily have to become attorneys. I think that's a personal decision if somebody wants to become an attorney. I know I've made that decision myself to become an attorney because that's the path in which I found myself on, coming up out of the penal cipher. But, even if someone takes the time out to just read some of the cases that was involved and to kind of get the understanding of why this is important, understand the history, the language, they'll be able to understand what it is that we're challenging, what it is that we're dealing with, and how to be successful at doing it. Born King is a great example and a great resource because, he is holding down the National Office of Cultural Affairs, who's also responsible for educating people on how to successfully bring a lawsuit that involves representing our culture, you know, and for those who are incarcerated. So he's a great outlet for that. And I think people should reach out to Born King and ask for some material to bring them up to speed and what's going on. You know, very important.
True indeed. Now, I want to end on this note because time was
Right.
the essence. You know, ever since Corona, it's a lot of people. We need to we do remote work from home.
Right.
School has went online, but
Right.
within the 5% culture, like when you see social media, it's like a group of people that seem like they hate the social media like aspect of the culture, and even some people have actually gotten drawn to the culture through social media. So like, what you say on that dynamic? Because to me, it's like I think it's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, you social media is a powerful tool. We can't escape it. You know, it's here. It's only going to grow bigger. If anybody took the time out to understand the numbers of people who are using social media every day, that number is growing, right? More and more people are getting cell phones and other technology devices, and you know, they're largely being used, you know, to deal with social media. So this is a reality. It's here. Why not become masters of it?
Indeed. And on that note, I want to share with people, because you know that an aspect of the show Improve this year that I'm a part of the committee, the educational committee, is going to be on social media because of the COVID-19.
Right.
This interview is happening online with the technology. So it's like we have to get in tune with the time, you know. And
yeah, definitely.
I want you to give, before we go, do you have any takeaways, any parting words that you just can share with the people?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for starting up this platform. I think this goes right to the heart of what I was just saying, right? We have to start learning how to use these tools, use technology to get the word out, teach people, because if we don't change, we die, right? The methods of teaching, we don't have to change what we teach in order to be effective in what we teach, right? And so there's different ways of teaching, right? Sometimes back in the days, people did it on the street corners. Now we're doing it online. And this shows that we are learning and mastering technology to use it to get the word out, get these interviews out. Let's go out there and do our job, man. Let's do our duty, man, because we always listen, God is about teaching now, right? It's about with the present. What are we doing now? And so this is what we're doing now. This is one of these platforms, and I definitely appreciate you for putting it together. And I hope that other people will do the same on their platforms, where they use their platforms for good, use their platforms to teach who the true and living God is, right? If we are supposed to be getting our word out to the 85%, and we know that the 10% are teaching them daily, right? Daily, then we have to move daily, right? Maybe not take up our entire day, but let's learn the tools of the trade today, because this is our new street corner. It's the cyber world, and it's infinite and such. That's why the Infinity Edition is coming out soon. And we all must use, as 5% is all as God's on earth, we all must use our respective platforms to get the word out, to teach, to show and prove who we are, man. Just, you know, master your platform, master your lane, you know, and we're going to have opportunities to merge what we're doing, you know, to really get the word out. So just like, for example, right now, you know, this video, when you put this video out, I'm going to share it on my platform, right? And such is the same we do with everything else, man. With other brothers and sisters, man, they got their own respective issues that they're addressing. And it's you know, it would be I think effective if we start developing plans to cross promote, you know, use each other's platforms, use our platforms to get the word out. Because now our teachings have the potential to spread at a much faster rate than it was back in the 60s. And so in honor of those who paved the way for us to be here today, we should master this tool as well, be able to get the word out at a much faster rate. So, you know, in terms of final words, God, final thoughts, keep teaching.
That's peace,
That's
God.
it, keep teaching.
And I thank you for coming on Mallah's Insight, man. And I wish you much success in your endeavors to becoming a lawyer as well as an author, because I know writing books is not an easy task and it's time consuming. So I like to say thank you, and I like to say peace, and I wish you well to you and your family, especially during this Corona season time. Peace.
Definitely.